What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Skin in the Game, where we talk everything Kansas City Chiefs football. I am your host, Austin Thompson, aka OZ, and we've got a great episode for you today, guys. It's a rough one, dealing with some back spasms. So if you see me kind of shake and jolt, just ignore. Getting over it, getting through it. So glad to be on. I'm glad to talk some Chiefs football. It hasn't looked great these last 2 weeks, and the playoffs are starting to look slim. They're looking real slim to none, but we're still excited. We're excited for the team because there's more than just this season. We can look forward to next season and kind of rebuilding, retooling. I don't want to necessarily say the dynasty is over. This is just a rebuild year, a pause in the dynasty. As long as you have Patrick Mahomes on that field, I think you have a shot to win the Super Bowl. And I think that the team will kind of reevaluate this year, and then going forward, we'll build up, rebuild, retool, whatever we want to call it, and change the direction of the team. So let's dive in. We're going to recap Week 14 loss against Houston. You know, a real tough one that the Chiefs needed more than they ever know. It pretty much kind of limits their chances to make the playoffs. And so diving into segment 2, bye-bye playoffs. We'll kind of discuss the different paths and basically the mathematics behind how the Chiefs can still make the playoffs. But just to be real, be honest with you guys, that's what I like to do. It's probably not going to happen. The Chiefs making the playoffs is just not going to happen. We'll dive into also what I think the Chiefs should do for the rest of the season once they are mathematically eliminated, or once they kind of realize they're not making the playoffs. And that might be that point, now. They might be thinking, well, we're done. It's a small percentage chance that we make the playoffs. So let's kind of start thinking for 2026. And so that's kind of where I want to discuss my ideas, discuss what I think the Chiefs should do going forward. And then we'll still dive into that Chargers game, Week 15, where it's still important. It's still a very important game. There's still 4 games to go. And again, the Chiefs do have a chance. There is a chance. Like I said, it's slim, but every game matters. They have to win every game out, and the dominoes have to fall the right way. So let's dive into the Texans game. Chiefs lose 20-10. Kind of a bummer, man. A real bummer. You thought that they would maybe come out with some fire playing at home, playing on Sunday night, and they've had Houston's number in the past few years. They beat them in the playoffs last year, and ever since maybe that 2019 crazy comeback, I was at that game with my wife. Shout out to my wife. They've had Houston's number, and you thought this was when they were going to turn it around. They were going to keep their chances alive. They weren't going to lose at home Sunday night, prime time. Mahomes was not going to let it happen. And it completely failed. It completely failed, and the team looked terrible. They looked not very good. The defense played great. We can talk about the defense all we want. The defense was awesome. The defense came in. The D-line showed up. That was a huge issue that a lot of people talked about throughout the season, and we've talked about on the show here, that it's been a huge issue with the D-line, that there was no pass rush. And what do you know is the one time in the season that you really need your defense to step up, the defense played phenomenal, and they came to play. They got multiple 3-and-outs. They had 7 drives for 7 punts in a row or something ridiculous like that. Your defense came when they needed the most. They haven't had a great season. Trent McDuffie gets hurt in the game, doesn't come back, and you still don't miss a beat. And to touch on that point, that is more of a reason why the Chiefs should trade Trent McDuffie. We won't dive in that too much. I know that's kind of a hot topic, but the Trent McDuffie getting injured and the Chiefs not losing a beat against a solid team, a playoff team, that should tell you guys something. So don't hate on that take, because I think it's going to be something that the Chiefs end up doing in the offseason more than a lot of people will think, especially after that performance. But D-line showed up. Chris Jones, shout out to him. He led that D-line in the only way that they could, which was he was dominant every play. I mean, you saw him do swim moves. You saw him do spins. You saw him do, rip throughs. I mean, he was dominant. You knew when he was on the field, and he came to play. And you saw other guys kind of rallying off of Chris Jones' fire. They talked about him going to the fans, hyping them up. I mean, they talked about all these different things that Chris Jones was doing to lead that defense, and he showed up. And the offense is the one that let him down. The offense let the team down. It seemed to be kind of a continuous thing that happens week after week, that one of the two sides, lets down the other. So 1 week the offense lets down the defense, 1 week the defense lets down the offense. The team this year has just not been a cohesive unit at all. They just haven't operated, and that comes down to coaching, that comes down to preparation, that maybe even comes down to personnel. But overall, this team, man, they're way better on paper than they've played this year. And the Chiefs were way worse on paper last year and have a way better record last year. And this year, this team on paper they should have been the 15-2 team. I mean, this team is stacked with different players all around them in different positions. They've got stars all around. They've got stars in all different positions. And this year, they just can't get it together. 6-7 is a huge dent on Mahomes' legacy. And I'm not blaming Mahomes, but there's a team like this built this way with Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback should not be this way. They should not be a 6-7 team. They should not be losing these games. Every game is close, and they're right there. You know, every week you hear Andy Reid, we're this close, we're this close. And it's true. They are this close. But to a certain extent, you have to get over the hump. You have to get not just this close. You have to get there. You have to get to that point where you're getting wins, that these close games are falling your way. And Houston, credit Houston. I mean, they came to play. They weren't scared. They came in and knew exactly what the Chiefs were going to do. They held this supposed lightning offense that was talked about all year at St. Joe to 10 points. So shout out Houston. And some things that didn't happen that you thought were going to happen was you thought Houston's D-line was going to go crazy. You thought Mahomes was going to get sacked 20 times, the way that the national media talked about this Houston defense. And you thought Mahomes was going to be in the Tampa Bay Super Bowl running 30 miles in the game. He's going to be scrambling and running around crazy. And that wasn't the case at all. You for what Houston's defense is and their pass rush, you got a really good game from your offensive line, especially with backups. So the fact that wasn't the problem, the fact that Mahomes had the time, the fact that receivers were getting open, but they just couldn't catch the ball. 10 drops, guys. 10 drops in a game that is for the season. And you show up with 10 drops in the game. There's no coming back from that. There wasn't even bad penalties. There was one bad penalty against Noah Williams that did put up a touchdown, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to overcome those things. Good teams overcome bad penalties and bad calls. So you can't blame the refs. You can't blame the offensive line. They played as good as they were going to play for what they were, which was a backup right tackle and a third string left tackle who played his tail off and probably is going to earn himself a spot. S.A. Pole, he's going to earn himself a spot on the team next year, possibly as backup left tackle or backup right tackle. Wanya Morris is gone. So you got great play from your offensive line. The run game was non-existent, zero. Isaiah Pacheco had a hole the size of the Nile, and he ran right into Travis Kelce in his back. There's just so many things wrong with this team. And so let's go through some of the things that, just irk me that a team this good should not have. So let's start with Mahomes. Let's start with the offense. We'll start with Mahomes. A lot of people are saying that you can't blame Mahomes for this game, and you can't to a certain extent. But I think as the leader, as the supposed best quarterback in the league, there's a certain level of expectation that 3 interceptions, your worst QBR rating in your career, your worst completion percentage, 42% or 44%. That's horrid. That is a horrible game from you. And again, I know that Mahomes is a fighter and he is not going to give up, and he will do everything. He'll put his heart on the field, but that only gets you so far. You have to play a much better clean game. And again, 2 of those interceptions, probably not his fault-ish. The first one that Rashee Rice ended up getting tipped out of his hands, and then the defender, Petrie, made a crazy play on it. If that ball's thrown out in front, does that get intercepted? Maybe, maybe not. It's a 50-50 throw. It could have been better. I'm not saying Mahomes has to be the pinpoint accurate, quarterback, but that it could have been a better throw is what I'm getting at. And then the arm punt is what people are calling. Mahomes underthrew Hollywood Brown by 6 yards. And yes, it is an arm punt because it was 3rd and 8, and you would have done the same thing if you punted the ball on 4th down. But I don't like the term arm punt because you could have got a 1st down and kept the drive alive, and you killed the drive because you threw up what would have been supposedly a 50-50 ball, but you made it a 90-10 because you threw it 6 yards short. And if you watch the replay, he threw it off his back foot. He just didn't have the strength to get it there. But those are things that you have to. Those are things on Mahomes. Those are things that Mahomes has to clean up. Or even the one to Travis Kelce. That one, that was a problem. That was on him. As much as it was on Kelce, that was on Mahomes. If you watch Mahomes and the way he threw that, and the way it's behind him. It's behind Travis Kelce. And that's an issue. That's an issue because Kelce should have caught it for sure. Absolutely. Kelce should have caught it. But it's behind him. As much as you want to blame, Mahomes, or as much as you don't want to blame Mahomes, and you don't want to blame Kelce, you want to blame Kelce, I blame them both. Travis Kelce is a professional, should have made the catch, 100%. Should have made the catch. Travis Kelce, professional, hit your hands. That's what I've always been taught. That's what I was always told. If you get a fingertip on it, you should be able to catch the ball. So, yes, it does go on Travis Kelce, but it also goes on Mahomes because the ball was 2 seconds behind him, a second behind him. He had to turn and try to turn funky and try to catch it, and it was behind him. So, again, Mahomes, as much as he was a fighter, as much as he came to play, and as much as he plays with his heart on his shoulders, he didn't have it's a bad game from him, and it's a bad look. The most important game of the season, and you flop. I mean, it's the most important game of the season, and he flops. Doesn't show up. And again, I know that just because you show up and play hard, that doesn't mean you showed up and played well. There's a certain level of expectation you have for a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And he has to play better. And he'll tell you himself he has to play better. Yes, his guys let him down and dropped a ton of easy passes, but you got to find ways to overcome it, and you got to find ways to not make mistakes at that point. When other guys are making those mistakes, the quarterback cannot make mistakes. The quarterback cannot make mistakes. So that's really where the issues with the offense were. I mean, let's go into the play calling. Andy Reid put on probably his worst performance I've seen him as at least a Chiefs head coach, if not his career. And what I mean by that is Andy Reid is notoriously known to be a conservative coach. He won't be so aggressive because his emotions don't get too high or get too low. He stays even keeled throughout the game, and he makes good decisions, not based on emotion. And that 4th down that they went for on the Chiefs' 31-yard line that Rashee Rice ends up dropping, it felt like a panic. It felt like this was the season on the line, and he went for it. In a scenario where normally I'd be a little bit more aggressive, I'd be on the aggressive side, like especially if you're around midfield and it's 4th down, let's go for it. It's the way that the kickoff rules are now where you get the ball on the 35-yard line. Like, we might as well go for it because you're only giving up 10, 15 extra yards. So let's go for it. And there's 2 times where Andy Reid could have went for it on 4th down. The 4th and 10 where there was a penalty and then they punted it, and he declines the penalty that would have made it 4th and 5, and they could have went for it on the Texans' 44-yard line. They could have went for it, and they didn't, which that's one I would have gone for. And then another time, same situation around midfield, 4th down, decides to punt. But then when you're on your own 31 and you decide to go for it, you didn't call a timeout. You kind of threw out a play. You had to get a play within 40 seconds, and you just kind of throw it out there, hoping somebody makes a play for you. That at least call a timeout, Andy. I mean, you got to call a timeout there. It's the biggest play of the season, possibly. It changed the entire game. You gave automatic go-ahead field position for the Texans, who end up going down and scoring. And yes, you could say execution, you could say play calling, whatever. But at the end of the day, it was Andy's decision to go for it. and it was the wrong decision. Your defense was playing unstoppable. Your defense was, again, 7 3-and-outs or 7 shutouts in a row, gave up no points, gave up like 17 yards in 7 possessions. I mean, they played – that third quarter was insane. The defense played insane in that third quarter, and Andy decides not to trust his defense, but rather he trusts himself over his defense in that game. He trusted his play calling over what his defense was showing him and doing him for him in the entire game. And it's kind of a gut punch or a punch to the throat when your defense is playing their tail off for you and you don't trust them. Because to me, that's what I get is if you're going to go forward on 4th and 10 at your or fourth down on your own 31 and the game's tied, guys, it was 10-10. The game was tied at that point. Why are we going for that? It just, I can't wrap my head around it. I can't wrap my head around why Andy went for it. It just makes no sense. And, like I said, Mahomes finished with 14 for 33, 160 yards and 3 interceptions. I mean, it's stuff that you just can't have. You can't have if you want to get back to the playoffs. You can't have if you're supposed to be this AFC championship or bust every year team. Showing up like that is just, again, and I know people don't want to blame Mahomes, but Mahomes is, you can give criticism to Mahomes. You can say, yeah, he had a bad game. He didn't play very well. And as much as he talked about last week, Mahomes did before the game about doing whatever it takes. And that was either using his legs or, making the right plays or extending plays, whatever it was. But the Chiefs are 0-4 this season when Mahomes is the leading rusher. And he ended up with being the leading rusher because he was trying to be Superman. And I think going forward in 26 and so on, and Mahomes is now on his, call it second half of his career. He's going to turn 31 next year. Mahomes needs to take a step back and realize he's not Superman anymore. And they need to find a good system. He needs to get into a system as not necessarily be a system quarterback, because what makes Mahomes is the crazy, magic plays that he can make in the pocket. But he still needs a system. You need a system where it's a 3-step drop, hit a slant. You need some of those go-to plays. You need some of those go-to things. And that's where they struggle, is because the Chiefs offense is now predictable and the system is dead. And Mahomes is trying to do too much. He's just trying to do too much. And I tweeted at Jason Dunn, shout out JD. He put out a tweet and I just responded and said, what do they do? What do they do? And he listed out a ton of things. He said, more double moves and not even 10 minutes later, Hollywood Brown gets hit for a deep shot double move. I mean, these are things that a former NFL player was able to just easily come up with that worked. He talked about running through the B gap more, things like that. And I don't understand why somebody who's retired, who hasn't been in the league for a while, not, of course, a great player and not in the NFL currently, though. He played in like the mid 2000s era style football, and he can still see what changes need to be made. And those are things that not even just an NFL player is called out is the thing, is it's people like me who just watch football for fun, see the same thing and make statements like that on their podcasts or on their shows. And they see these things, and it seems that the Chiefs have got their eyes covered in kind of narrow vision, like tunnel vision. They have tunnel vision on how they want to operate. And they want to operate the way Andy Reid wants to operate. And it's giving end of Philly era right now. I'm not calling for Andy Reid's head. I'm not calling for him to get fired. I'm not hoping that he retires. He's a Hall of Fame great coach. But he does need to revamp this offseason. He does need to change a lot. He needs to change a lot. So we can move right into the offseason stuff. Let's move into the playoffs, and we'll go from playoffs and get into offseason, all kind of combine it together. So With the playoff situation, like I said, it's like a 17 or 16% chance. I've seen a few numbers, but it's not a very good chance. And so the situations that have to happen, last night, the Chargers beat the Eagles, and that didn't help the Chiefs at all. I mean, that really diminished the chance of the playoffs even more, because what you needed is you need the Chargers to either go 1-3 or 2-2, but one of their losses has to be against the Broncos, and they play the Broncos later this year. So they go 1-3, and then that gives you a chance to get in if you go 4-0, as the Chiefs go 4-0, or they go 2-2, but one of the losses is the Broncos, and then you beat them and you have the tiebreaker because AFC wins. So that's step one. And this is something that Chiefs fans are not familiar with for a long time, especially newer Chiefs fans. They're not familiar with coming up with the different path to try to make the playoffs. But this is what we have to do, sitting at 6-7 and having some kind of a hope. And again, I don't know if there is hope. I don't think there is hope, but it's still a chance. I think the team's morality is defeated. That's the reason why I don't think that they have a shot. Also, they just haven't proven to me that they can go win 4 games in a row. I mean, there's factual basis behind it, guys. I mean, they haven't played good all year, and you can't expect them to go to beat the Chargers, the Raiders, the Titans, and then the Broncos. They got to win all 4 of those. Now, again, there is a chance that the Broncos have the AFC West wrapped up. They've got the 1 seed wrapped up. They might be sitting their guys on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Now, the NFL might not like that, but there's a possibility. There's a possibility if the Patriots lose a few games over the next few weeks and the Broncos keep winning, there might be a chance that the Broncos don't play their starters. And the Chiefs might have a chance. They should beat the Titans and they should beat the Raiders. So the Chargers is the biggest thing. And then the Broncos. But again, it depends on if they play their starters or not. So those four wins from the Chiefs have to happen. 2 or 3 losses, depending on the losses, for the Chargers. And then finally, you need the Colts to go 2-2. You have the tiebreaker over the Colts, so you need the Colts to go to 2-2, which is a possibility. You know, Daniel Jones is out for the season, but they just did sign a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, which is kind of crazy. They signed him as practice squad, and I read a report that it's not out of the question that he might not play this week. So the Colts might still be running, and they still might try to make a run at the playoffs and just kind of ride the Phillip Rivers train going into the playoffs. But yeah, kind of crazy. 44 years old, coming out of retirement, hasn't played in, I think, 4 or 5 years, something crazy like that. So, but that's what has to happen. You have to get 2 losses from the Colts and 2 to 3 losses from the Chargers out of the next 4. And the way the Chargers were playing last night, I don't think that they're going to lose 2 or 3 games. They do have a tough schedule. They have a very tough schedule, toughest out of all the teams that, you know, between the Chiefs, Chargers, and Colts, they definitely have the toughest schedule. So it's possible, but just probably not likely that the Chiefs end up making the playoffs. And then we'll start focusing our content more on going into the future of 2026. And so if the Chiefs don't make the playoffs, this is kind of what me personally going for the rest of the season, 2025, and then looking forward, kind of planning for 2026. This is what I would like to see. So Noah Williams first, number 20, who doesn't know, he came in for McDuffie last night, or 2 nights ago on Sunday. He played his tail off. He had 1 penalty that ended up letting the Texans continue their drive, and they scored a touchdown. But he looks to be a lockdown corner and another steal from Brett Veach in the draft when it comes to DBs. He should be a starter going forward. It should be Jalen Watson, Noah Williams on the outside, and Trent McDuffie should be in the slot for at least the rest of the season. And you may see the Chiefs pull Trent McDuffie's hurt and he's out for the rest of the season if they decide not to kind of pursue this playoff push, because they're going to trade him in the offseason. So that is a possibility. But I think Noah Williams needs to be starting going forward. It's time to start developing some young guys. You've got a good list of young guys on here, and they've played in moments. They played great, and it's time to give them a bigger sample size to see if they can help your team in the future in 26, 27 going on. So Noah Williams needs to be a starter. He played his tail off. And again, he reminds me a little bit of L'Jarius Sneed. the way he plays. He's a very physical man corner, and he's going to be right up in your grill on the line of scrimmage. And again, he just gives me a L'Jarius Sneed vibes. So second is Jeffrey Bassa, who has got a lot of special teams play this year, but not much play on the defensive side. And where I think that he would be great is I think that he would be a good fill-in for kind of Drew Tranquil, who we'll get into a little bit later. But I think that next step will be to bring in Bassa to kind of play that Tranquil role. Nick Bolton is a downhill tackler, and you need that linebacker coverage. And Bassa used to play safety, comes from Oregon. He's a guy that you could bring in and be that coverage linebacker, especially when you have Leo Chenal, who's kind of like the edge rusher linebacker. You have Nick Bolton, who is the downhill tackler. And then now you have a guy that you can develop, Jeffrey Bassa, who would be your coverage linebacker. That is number 2. Number 3, Ashton Gelati. He's played great for a rookie season. He's getting a lot more pressures than, you kind of see big 97 out there, long hair, and you're like, wow, he's kind of getting to the quarterback, or, he's causing pressures. He's not necessarily getting a ton of sacks or anything like that, but I think he's a guy that you can develop where you kind of have this 3-man rotation, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and Ashton Gelati. I think that's a good foundation. Definitely think the Chiefs need to continue to make moves in the offseason and bring in, another pass rusher or a star-studded guy where you can continue to rotate guys in. But I think Ashton Gelati can be part of that rotation. So I think you want to give him more reps to really see what he can do and develop over the next 4 to 5 weeks, whatever it is. I think that's somebody that you should really try to develop. And then last guy that I think that they should kind of focus on for these next 4 games is Issa Pole. So Issa Pole was an undrafted free agent rookie for the Chiefs. Chiefs ended up cutting him, which is kind of a big red flag, because who's evaluating the talent? I mean, it seems kind of crazy that a guy that played against one of the best pass rushers only gave up 1 quick pressure, and it was actually 4 seconds of blocking. So he basically gave up no pressures, and he steps right in on basically getting called up to the team this week, steps right in for Wanya Morris and plays like an awesome left tackle. If the Chiefs didn't have Josh Simmons for going into the future, I think Pole would have a real shot being at the left tackle position. And so I think he has a real shot of developing into that swing tackle that you saw Jalen Moore play this year. He played right tackle against the Texans and struggled a lot. And I don't know if he's going to be on the team next year, guys. He makes a lot of money and is struggling quite a bit. And you can't pay I think they may keep him for right tackle, but he's got to improve a lot. And you may see that if he doesn't improve, over these next 4 weeks playing, I'm assuming they're going to keep him at right tackle. I assume he'll stay at right tackle because that's the plan for him for the future, is to play right tackle. And he was originally brought on for left tackle, and that's a whole different conversation about why they played Wanya Morris at left tackle and why they put Jalen Moore at right. But I think that was a future move. They wanted to see what Jalen Moore could do in against one of the best pass rushers in Will Anderson, who cooked him. But you got to start thinking about the future. And so I think that was one of the moves, was Jalen Moore playing right tackle. He'll probably play right tackle the rest of the season. Juwan Taylor, sorry, bud. You were great for us. I'm assuming that he'll be done unless the Chiefs really think that they can squeeze in the playoffs. You probably see Jalen Moore at right tackle, and then you'll see S.A. Pole play left. And I hope they continue to play, develop, and again, I think Pole can get signed to the team next year and be a nice swing tackle for next year's line. So that's what I think the Chiefs should really focus on is, and I don't want to fully say it out loud because as a Chiefs fan, I want the team to win, but the 2 things is developing your players, and then it's getting the best draft pick as possible. I mean, if you're not making the playoffs, you have no incentive to win. None. So if the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs, you might as well kind of sit guys, let these younger guys play. And if you don't win all your games, if you go 2-2, or you're floating right now around that 14th pick. I mean, there's some blue chip prospects at 14, or you could package something up and move up to 10 or 9, and you could get that edge rusher that you really need, or you can get that defensive tackle that you really want. The Chiefs are flirting with, do you tank the rest of the season or not? And fans don't want to hear that. Fans don't want to see that. They want to see their team try to win, but at some point you gotta make a choice. You gotta make a choice here. And we talked about it last week when we said if they lost, I think that they should tank. I think that they should go for a better draft pick. When's the last time the Chiefs have picked in the top 15? It's been a long time. They've been picking at 27 to 32 for the last 8 years. So you can get yourself a real nice prospect right in the middle of the draft, pick 14, 13. Like I said, it's time to focus on the young guys, and it's time to focus on retooling for next year, because it's not a rebuild. I don't think the Chiefs are rebuilding. They're going to retool this offseason, and they're going to hit the ground running. You have too many weapons. You have too many big names. You got too many players, guys that have good experience. And they're going to be hungry next year. This year, this is a fatigue year, is what I would call it. You just came back to back Super Bowls, season. So you played 60 games over the last 3 years. That's tough. That's a lot of games. So yes, there is probably regular season fatigue. There's probably fatigue in general, but it's time to retool, make these choices now, get these guys some reps, get these guys, some playing time so that they can be ready for you in 2026 and help you out. So let's talk about 2026, because I looked into the cap situation a little bit more, and there is some real issues that are going to happen here. So we talked about Chris Jones. He's going to make $45 million a year next year. He's going to have a $45 million cap hit, and he's not going anywhere. I see people say, let's trade Chris Jones. The guy's not going anywhere. Nobody's going to take an older D tackle for that price. Harrison Butker, not going anywhere. He's got 2 years left on his deal, and he's not a deal where you can void and get some of that money back. So Harrison Butker, Chris Jones are not going anywhere. The guys that are going to go, and if I was a GM, if I was building this team, there would be a huge overhaul. One, to create cap space, retool. But two, some of these guys just are getting overpaid. So one, I mentioned earlier, Drew Tranquill. Drew Tranquill's probably gone. He's been a great service to the Chiefs. I think he's been a great leader in that locker room. But the way his contract is he's going to be cuttable. So he's probably going to be gone. You're probably going to see Brian Cook. Me personally, I actually like Brian Cook at safety, but I don't know if they're going to pay him. Brian Cook is another guy that may, if he gets paid for the right deal and gives it team friendly, but he might be gone. You're probably going to see Juju gone. You're probably going to see Travis Kelce, if he retires, gone. Jawan Taylor, gone. You're going to see Derek Nottie gone. You're going to see Mike Pennell gone. You're going to see Charles Omenihu gone. So the whole D line is going to get revamped. On the corners, we've talked about Trent McDuffie. If he gets traded, you're going to trade Trent McDuffie. So there's one of your corners. Joshua Williams, another corner, is probably going to be gone. So there's going to be 10 plus players, 10 plus guys that play that are, that give you good minutes in games, that give you a ton of snaps, that are probably going to get cut. They're probably going to be gone. And so those are the areas that you have to retool. And again, it's nothing against these guys, but Mike Dana, another one, gone. I mean, there's a ton of guys that have been re-signed by the Chiefs because they know the system, or they're a veteran and they know how the NFL works, and they know, some of the calls, and they could pick up the playbooks easier and quicker. But at the end of the day, you have to use, if you're going to have these high-end players that you're going to pay a lot, like Mahomes and Chris Jones, the salary cap situation doesn't work where you can have middle tier guys. You're going to have a bunch of high end, and you got to have star-studded low end. So you got to have rookies who don't get paid that much, give you good snaps, give you good minutes. So Noel Williams on a rookie deal, he's going to get a lot of playing time next year. Ashton Gelati, defensive line. He should be in the rotation and get a ton of snaps next year. Jeffrey Bassa, rookie deal, going to get you a ton of snaps. He has another year under his belt, so he'll be a second-year player. He should get a ton of snaps. Jaden Hicks, rookie deal. Don't know why the guy's not playing. I think he's going to be a stud at safety. I don't know why Mike Edwards is even on the field. Again, it's one of those things that Andy Reid loves veterans, loves to have veterans on the field because they know the playbook, they know the NFL. But you have to make that decision sometimes where you're going to grow your rookies or grow your young guys. Jaden Hicks should be playing. Jaden Hicks he's a star in the making, and the Chiefs just need to play him. He's a hard-hitting safety that seems to be a ball hawk, had 3 interceptions his rookie year, and some reason doesn't get to play. You have other guys like Rashee Rice, who will be on his last year of his deal, and there's people saying that you shouldn't pay him after the performance against Houston. I think that's a mistake. I think you should pay Rashee Rice. What I think is that you can even get him at a better deal, knowing that 1, he's missed a lot of time, 2, because of his injury, 3, because of his off-the-field issues. So there's a level of you can get Rashee Rice for a steal. You're not going to overpay for Rashee Rice because because of what he's done. So I think that they should sign Rashee Rice. I think that he'll continue to grow with Mahomes. But again, I don't necessarily blame people for not saying, let's go find a better number 1 wide receiver. I don't hate it. But again, I think Rashee Rice can grow with Mahomes. You got to let those guys grow because you're taking advantage of their cheap contracts, especially when they can produce for you. Rashee Rice can produce. Rashee Rice next year will be a 1,000-yard receiver. If Kelsey's gone, he'll be a 1,000-yard receiver for sure. So you have Rashee Rice, who you got to bring back, and then you still got to sign Leo Chenal. If you let him go, I think that's a huge mistake because he's just such a good multi-tool kind of player where you put him at linebacker, you can put him at D-end, you can put him on the field goal block team, and he blocks field goals. You put him on special teams, and he makes tackles. Like, he's just a guy that you want on your football team. So I think that those 2 guys are important to keep, but everybody else is cuttable. Pacheco, gone. Kareem Hunt, probably gone, maybe brought back if he still wants to play. But Pacheco is gone for sure. As much as the fandom loves, Isaiah Pacheco, Chiefs Kingdom loves him, he's not going to cut it going into next year. Isaiah Pacheco's not going to cut it, and he's not going to get an extension. He's not going to get paid. And it's unfortunate for the guy because the guy's a 7th-round pick, and I feel bad. But the Chiefs are not giving him an extension, and he may go play for another team for a very cheap deal. And, hopefully he has great success with another team, but Pacheco will not be a Chief next year. Sorry to tell you guys. Pacheco will not be a Chief. Mike Edwards will not be a Chief. Possibly Trent McDuffie will not be a Chief. You'll see Mike Dana. You'll see Charles Menahue. You'll see Mike Pennell, Derek Nottie. All of them will not be Chiefs next year. The whole defense is getting revamped. And I wrote last week in my Substack basically what I think the Chiefs should do in the offseason. One of them was retool the entire defense through the 2026 NFL draft. Because all of these guys are going to get cut. Drew Tranquil, gone. So you need to fill these voids. And if you remember a few years ago when the defense was horrible, and that's what Veach did, is he rebuilt the entire, and he hit like every pick. He rebuilt the entire defense through the draft. The Chiefs didn't go make some big splash. They brought in Justin Reed, and Justin Reed was the leader. And I think the Chiefs need to go find a leader for their defense. Nick Bolton is not that guy. He's a great player, but he's not a leader. Leo Chenal's not a leader. Great player, not a leader. Chris Jones should be the leader, but I think he's diva-ish attitude sometimes when it comes to the way things happen and the way, especially with his contract signing and him sitting out games. And I just don't think he's a leader of men when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Great player. I just don't think he's the leader for the defense. So the Chiefs have to do a lot this offseason to rebuild the defense, and they're going to have to go find a pass rusher to get in that rotation. And I'm not saying you have to go get Trey Hendrickson, the best one available, but you need a B-plus guy. And I don't know who that is, but again, if you're going to develop George Karlaftis, who hasn't played great this year, you gave him an extension. Chris Jones who's going to be 32, making $45 million a year. Ashton Gelati, who you want to play because he's on a rookie deal and he's showed promise. He could play that D tackle DN spot, Mike Dana-ish role, but you need another guy. And then you can go get some of those lower guys who give Chris Jones a breather, give George Karlaftis a breather. You want a 6 to 7 man rotation so guys have fresh legs. And so all of this I'm saying, and I know this is going to happen. This is just things that I would do. But the Chiefs are, if they want things to change, they're going to have to change their mentality. And I'm afraid that they might not. And what I mean by that is that they like veterans. They like guys who have been in the building before. So you've seen they've traded a 6th round pick for Derek Nani after they let him walk. They traded a pick for McCole Hardman. They brought him back. So the Juju, as soon as he got cut, hey, come back. I mean, they like guys who have been in the building before because it's kind of like somebody who doesn't want to train you at work. Like, oh, that's the new guy, and you expect him to pick up immediately without training. That's how Andy Reid, that's how the Chiefs treat rookies, is that they want you to be at the 5-year veteran level experience, but they're not willing to train you in any way. Or the only time they're willing to train you is preseason, training camp, or games that are blowouts. And see, that's not where you're going to get experience. You need to get put into the fire at sometimes, especially when you have guys on the bench. And again, I don't know who's evaluating this talent for the Chiefs, but Noah Williams should be getting playing time. Noah Williams should not go a game without a snap. You're telling me that Chamari Connor is that much better than Noah Williams? I mean, again, it's about development. You can't just always have veterans playing to keep the dynasty going, to keep the tenure of the team at a high level continuing. You have to play rookies. You have to hit on your draft picks, which the Chiefs do. They draft very well, but they decide to play them not so soon. But for some reason, like Xavier Worthy, you throw him into the fire because you had to. You didn't have a choice. And has it worked? Ish, maybe. I mean, Xavier Worthy's not going to be a number 1 receiver anytime. He's probably a number 3. And so you want Rashee Rice to be your number 1 or number 2, and then Xavier Worthy be your 2 or 3. But that's like one of the only times I remember Andy Reid doing that with a rookie. But I think that's only because he was forced to. He couldn't get anybody in the wide receiver room. They couldn't make a move, so they had to use what they had. But you haven't seen a time where a rookie has come in and got significant playing time. Like Jared Wiley, the tight end a few years ago, tore his ACL a couple years ago or last year, and he's got some minutes because Noah Gray got a concussion. That guy, he could have been a next Noah Gray could have developed into the starting tight end, and you have a backup at Jared Wiley. Jared Wiley's just now getting playing time year 3. So if Travis Kelce retires, you don't have a guy that's got good experience as your backup now. You have a 4-year guy that's played 3 games. Like, there has to be a shuffle. There has to be a change because, again, I think the Chiefs have this tunnel vision. I used the metaphor earlier that they have this tunnel vision of that they've won this way. They've done it this way for the last 7 years. It's worked. And the rest of the league's caught up. The rest of the league has figured out what the Chiefs do. They figured out this is how the Chiefs operate. These are the play calls. This is the situations that they do. Andy Reid is predictable. Spags is predictable. Mahomes is predictable. Chris Jones is predictable. Everybody's predictable. The Chiefs have probably played the most games in the last 7 years. And they've played on the most primetime games where everybody's watching. Every time somebody plays the Chiefs, it's their Super Bowl. Because it's their biggest game of the season. And who doesn't want to defeat the team that everybody's talking about? So, of course, everybody watches more film on the Chiefs than any other team. Everybody watches more highlights and more games than every other team on the Chiefs. Everybody watches the Chiefs. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying that, and I'm not tooting the Chiefs horn, not my own horn. I'm not tooting the Chiefs horn. What I'm saying is that everybody's caught up because They've been exposed in so many situations. They've been put on such a national scale that it's predictable now. And so that's why I talked about Matt Nagy needs to go. You got to shake up that offensive room. You're not going to fire Andy Reid. Clark Hunt is not going to fire Andy Reid. If the only way Andy Reid leaves is if he retires or if he misses the playoffs twice, I could see it. Two years in a row, Andy Reid misses the playoffs. You have a real conversation about firing Andy Reid. Andy Reid's not going anywhere. I think he needs to change his entire MO going forward. I think he needs to change the way he does anything because, again, it's predictable. But starting with Matt Nagy and starting with whatever offensive coordinator comes in, Cliff Kingsbury would be awesome. I think he's probably going to get a head coaching job, but him and Mahomes down at Texas Tech, they have that chemistry and experience. And I'm sure they work out in the offseason together down in Texas and whatnot. But whatever offensive coordinator comes in, if Matt Nagy gets fired, but I'm assuming he will, if he gets fired, you have to take the ideas. You need somebody with a creative mind to come in and change up everything because it's too predictable. It's too predictable, and there's just not – Andy Reid won't get out of his way. And so the only way to do that is he's going to have to take the opinion of somebody else. Andy Reid always talks about he has the 51% vote, means whatever he says goes. And he's going to have to really lean in on trusting whoever he hires as the offensive coordinator to call the plays or to, work with Mahomes closely, not just Andy Reid and Mahomes. But that offensive coordinator is going to have to be over the offense. It's time for Andy to take a step back and just be the head coach, be a leader of men, be the guy that fires them up, be the guy that gives the good speeches at halftime, gives the good speeches at the end of the game, guy that makes the right calls during the game and not bad decisions going for it on fourth down on your own 31. I mean, there's a ton of things that Andy Reid can change this offseason. And number one is giving the reins to somebody else to run the offense. And then now Spags, that's a different conversation. Because Spags is a mixture of problems. Spags is a mixture of problems because he's become predictable, but he's become predictable because of personnel. He's become predictable because his D-line can't get to the pass rush, so he has to figure out ways to blitz. So the Chiefs have almost done a very good job of hiding these flaws in these last 3 seasons because they made it to the Super Bowl. But the flaws of Spags sending corner blitzes and things like that comes from because his pass rush couldn't get to the quarterback, that he couldn't cause pressure. The D-line could not cause pressure, so he had to figure out a way to create pressure. He had to figure out weird ways to create pressure. That's why you see, George Karlaftis will drop into coverage, and then they send Trent McDuffie on the side because he has to figure out ways to confuse the offense, to confuse the quarterback. And it's gotten to a point where there's only so much you can do, and you become predictable. You've done the same thing for the last 5 years. And again, it's worked. And last year, it almost didn't work, but everything kind of fell your way. And this year, this is just the icing on the cake. This is just you're getting what really should happen because of coaching, because of the decision making, because of play calls, because you're predictable. These are the things that happen. And so this is why and I don't think the Chiefs will fire Spags either. And they're not going to do this super overhaul. They're going to put the blame on Matt Nagy, and Matt Nagy's going to get fired. But if the Chiefs have another bad season at defense, you might see Spags retire. I mean, they might forcefully retire him. It might be one of those things where he's just like, I'm not the same person I was, 5 years ago. And Andy Reid's probably going to start looking in the mirror as well. The way that he's coached, the decisions that he's made, he's got to think, man, I don't know if I'm the same coach I was 5 years ago. I don't know if I'm that same guy. So those are kind of the things that I want to see the Chiefs going forward over the last 4 games, going into the offseason moves. That's kind of what I want to see the Chiefs do, because they do have a ton of cap issues with Chris Jones, with Mahomes needs a restructure. If Travis Kelce comes back, they paid Harrison Butker and they can't get rid of him. I mean, there's a lot of different guys that they paid. Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. They paid a lot of guys. and there's not a lot of flexibility unless you do a complete overhaul and you start cutting guys left and right. So that's kind of what I want to see the Chiefs do. So let's move on to our final topic, which is the game against the Chargers. So we talked about the way the Chiefs get in the playoffs is one, they got to win out. So more than anything, and if you watched the game last night, the Chargers look really good. It was a very sloppy game because of all of the turnovers, and I don't think that the Chargers are unbeatable by any means. I think that overall they're beatable, and I think that Justin Herbert, who, he plays great and he does some crazy things sometimes. The guy isn't scared of anybody, but overall, I think the Chiefs can beat them, and that they'll continue to have this life until probably the Broncos game. Because the Chiefs technically can't be mathematically eliminated. So if they beat the Chargers this Sunday, they won't technically be mathematically eliminated until Christmas at best, possibly going into the last week of the season. Because if the Chargers lose and then they win, and then technically it might go into the last game of the season before the Chiefs are mathematically eliminated, unless they lose. I'm talking about if the Chiefs win and continue to win. So they're going to continue to keep this kind of like dangle of, let's keep the Chiefs fans' hopes alive that we're going to make the playoffs. And I feel like our hearts are going to get ripped out on the last game of the season, because you're not going to get the Colts to lose, or you're not going to get the Chargers to lose, and the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs. So that's why I think they'll probably fight and play tough these last 4 games. But overall, again, it's just a slim chance. You got to have a lot of things fall your way. But I think playing against the Chargers, their defense looks great, the Chargers defense. So it's another tough game, but you are at home, which you thought was an advantage. Again, we said the same thing against Houston. It was a home game in Arrowhead on a big stage, Sunday Night Football, and your team doesn't show up. I can continue to say that I think that the offense is going to show up. The defense is going to play great. Andy Reid's going to turn it around. I just don't think that that's going to happen. I just don't see it. I don't see the fight. Don't see the fire. You look at Travis Kelce's reaction after he bobbles that ball, and he's just kind of like, it just feels over. The season feels over. And again, I'm not saying the dynasty is over. I said the dynasty is at a pause. It's a pause and rebuild. The Patriots went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. I'm hoping it's not 10 years, but if it's 1 or 2, and then you get back into a spot where you're contending, I think that's a great turnaround. Guys, it's tough when you win Super Bowls and guys expect to get paid, and it's guys that shouldn't get paid. And again, that's the difference between what the Patriots dynasty was able to do versus what this Chiefs dynasty has done. The Patriots were cutthroat. They used you as much as you could, and then they squeezed you like a rag until they squeezed everything out of you, and then they were done. The Chiefs seem to love the guys that they groom, the guys that grow with them. Nick Bolton, who got paid, Harrison Butker. And I'm not saying these guys don't deserve to get paid, but this is just the results of the aftermath of having to pay guys that you shouldn't, that shouldn't have got paid. Like Nick Bolton shouldn't have got paid. The guy's great. I have multiple jerseys of his. I'm not a Mizzou fan, but he's a local guy here in Kansas City for the most part. Went to Mizzou, so it's like he's a hometown favorite. Everybody loves him, but his money could have been used somewhere else, and you have to make those tough decisions. And a lot of people use their emotions and heart when it comes to the players that they love, or players that they want to stay on the team because they just fell in love with them. But it's in the reality is going forward, you have to make those tough decisions. And the Chiefs are in a spot. That's why it's cap space issues. That's why the Chiefs are in a cap space chokehold, because they can't make those decisions now. They've kicked the can down the road too much. And that's why I put that take out that they have to trade Trent McDuffie, because that's one of the only options that they can do to make this team better. And that's one of the only moves. So, but what I think, I think the Chiefs, honestly, I think it ends on Sunday, and I think the Chiefs end up losing to the Chargers. It's just one of those things that, again, I think the morale is gone. I think, I think it's just time to start focusing on 2026. I think it's time to start focusing on 2026 and really evaluating, evaluating your roster and seeing what young guys can step up, what young guys that you can play over the next 4 games. Like we talked about, Issa Bowl, Jeffrey Bossa, Ashton Gelati, Noel Williams. These guys should be getting playing time. These guys should be getting playing time. These guys should be starting. I mean, seriously, they should be getting a ton of snaps. And I think it's time to just throw in the towel on the season. Again, it's not that I don't think or have any kind of hope or any kind of there's a chance. I still do think there is, especially if any team could get hot and any quarterback could get hot. I know it's Mahomes, and I know Mahomes could win them 4 games and somehow the dominoes fall and they make it to the playoffs. Because in my opinion, if the Chiefs did make it to the playoffs, I think they could win the Super Bowl. If they got hot right now, win the next 4 games, and go to, let's say, Foxborough to play the Patriots, I'm not taking Mahomes. I'm not taking Drake May over Mahomes. I mean, I really think that if they could sneak into the playoffs, they can win. I haven't seen enough this season to give hope that the Chiefs can win the next 4 games to make it. And that's why I don't think that they're going to beat the Chargers. And I think that you're going to see, once they lose to the Chargers, it's a full, all right, everybody's done. You'll see Jawan Taylor never touch the field again. You'll see Trent McDuffie sit out the rest of the season with an injury. I mean, you'll start to see those young guys play, and I think that's important. I'm not saying give up or don't fight for it, but again, it's just I don't think that the coaching is there. I don't think that the talent is there. I don't think that the right play calls are being played, and I think the Chargers are just playing a lot better than the Chiefs this year. So I imagine it'll be close. They'll put up a fight, but I'm probably going to take the Chargers 24-21. I think that the Chargers, they're just playing better, and the Chiefs just need to retool this year. I think it's one of those years that it's a retool, and it's time to start focusing on the future. It's time to start focusing on your draft position, and it's time to start focusing on those young guys getting more snaps and getting more opportunity. So that's it, guys. So appreciate everybody for stopping in. Again, my name is Austin Thompson, and this is Skin in the Game, where we talk everything Kansas City Chiefs football. You can follow us on YouTube, subscribe, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all at SITG Show. Love for you guys to comment and interact with the show as well. So don't be scared, or feel free to comment. And let's just continue to do these shows. I'm going to do them every Tuesday, even going all the way to the end of the season. And then we'll kind of reevaluate at the playoffs. If the Chiefs make it in, of course, we'll keep going. And then I may do a shorter 30-minute show just talking about NFL stuff, going over the playoff games and whatnot, and going into the Super Bowl. I'll do shorter shows and make them more generalized about the NFL. And then once the season's over, we'll kick right back off and go into, draft and combine and things like that. And so, yeah, I'm enjoying this. I like talking about the Chiefs, even though they've had a rough season. I like doing it. So appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the follow button, and we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.